He is the owner and the lead magician of the Magic and Wonder Theater, which he was so nice to invite me to be able to do this here today. Thank you for that.
Absolutely, Mike. Great to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you. He is also the recipient of the 2021 Merlin Award. We'll get into that a little bit later and
Sure.
the significance behind that. But this is Mr. Brett Myers, everyone.
Hey, it's great to be on the show here today. I appreciate you having me a part of this conversation, and I'm really honored that you took time out of your schedule to have a little conversation here today.
Thank you for inviting me to the theater. This is my second time here. My first time was to see a show over the summer.
Yes.
My friend Alex, who you know fondly from working with Bird in Hand.
That's right.
Texted me and he said, "Hey, do you want to come see a magic show tonight?" And I was like, I had to look at it. And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Oh, you mean like Atlantic City or something like that?" And he's like, "No, in Paradise." I was like, "In Paradise?" I was like, "What kind of show is this going to be?" And then came here. I forgot that this place even existed.
Yeah.
Is what it is today, the Magic and Wonder Theater.
Yeah, Magic and Wonder Theater. We're here located in the heart of Lancaster County, and we just kind of love being able to create moments of wonder for families and all kinds of audiences to come to visit this area.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Thank you.
It was really, really good.
Awesome.
I actually used to watch like Chris Angel and a bunch of, who was the other guy? David Blaine when I was younger.
Yeah.
I got my own little like magic card kit starter thing when I was a kid.
Sure.
And tried some tricks. My dad showed me this cool one where you like line up all the cards and make one appear and everything like that. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Magic was always a pretty big part of my childhood.
I feel like so many people have such a connection with it. Like I feel like a lot of a young kid's story is, they get a magic kit for Christmas or something like that, and they pick it up for a time and then they put it down. But all of us, I feel like, are drawn towards just being able to create those little moments of wonder for people.
Yeah. So how did you get started in magic?
Sure. So I remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I went to Disney World, and I remember there was a magic shop that was in Orlando, and my parents took me there. We got like a magic coloring book that taught simple magic tricks, or it was like that was a magic trick, and then there was another trick that they bought me an actual kit that had different tricks inside of it. And I remember basically picking that up for a little bit, and almost like every kid, they take an interest in it for a week or two, and then they put it aside. And it really wasn't until I was about 14 or 15 years old that I started getting interested again in it.
Okay.
And that's sort of when a friend loaned me some videos that taught things how to do with everyday objects, whether they were coins, ropes, rubber bands, deck of cards. And it was sort of that led me to start showing people on my school bus, showing family friends at family reunions, coffee houses, doing some stuff for my high school talent shows and stuff like that. And that sort of began what this has eventually become.
What it would become.
Yeah.
I used to do the one where you tape the toothpick to your thumb, have it here, and then like you go like this, and it disappears because it's like sitting back here.
Oh yeah, I feel like I've seen that before. It's been a while since I saw that, but yes,
I
do
like grab it back out of the air.
Yeah,
I was so cool in intermediate school.
Sure, it's a great party trick.
So not only are you the owner of this theater, you kind of had a pathway to getting to here, owning your own theater with everything.
Yeah.
I heard through kind of researching a little bit about you after I saw the show and everything that David Copperfield was a big inspiration in your life.
Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, David Copperfield had his TV specials on. They usually came on like once or twice a year, and I remember seeing him make the Statue of Liberty disappear. He was the first magician that I remember going to and seeing live, and I was just blown away. He made a car appear over audience members. It was just phenomenal things. And again, Copperfield is one of those iconic magicians that a lot of us can think of the name or have heard of the name before. I feel like more modern names would be like what you mentioned before, Chris Angel or David Blaine. But Copperfield was sort of the magician of the, I would say, 90s, 2000s, and he's still doing shows in Vegas today.
Going.
So I know, yeah, he's at I think one of the casinos in Vegas, and I've heard wonderful things still about his show. So
he. The one thing I always remember about seeing about him was the Statue of Liberty. Making the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Yes.
And now you, sir, made your own version of the Statue
we
of
did.
Liberty disappear.
I don't think that I've seen anybody make the Statue of Liberty up here on stage. So Copperfield made it famous for making it disappear in front of a live audience, but we kind of make a large figurine statue up here that looks like the Statue of Liberty, and it's kind of part of our way of thanking those that have served our country, those that have given us the opportunities and the freedoms that we have here in this country by those that are active retired military personnel.
Okay. I will say this about that, because during your show, and being kind of like keen to some of like magicians' tricks and
Mhm.
wonders and things like that. I have no idea how you did that. No idea. There was little parts during the show where I'm like,
Sure.
oh, I see that, I see that. This one I'm just like, how in the heck did this giant Statue of Liberty just appear?
You know,
on
it's
the
one of those
stage?
things. We were worried when we were doing it because you know the dimensions of the stage and all the things that you have to make the logistics of everything work. And it didn't almost fit. Like, it just barely fits on stage. So it's that big when it appears on stage. It just takes up the entire height of the stage, and people are just blown away at where that thing comes from.
Yeah, that's amazing. You had a bit of a hassle getting that thing back. I heard you didn't get that around this area. You got it down in
Oh
Tennessee, I
yeah.
believe.
So basically, the story of that is I had a friend that was able. He basically creates different three-dimensional objects, and he uses different materials and stuff like that to craft it. So it is actually a hand-carved statue.
Oh my gosh.
So he spent hours, like, basically taking huge, blocks and just putting it together, and then just carving away at those blocks, and then reinforcing it and painting it and decorating it to make it look like the actual Statue of Liberty. So it's really fun. He did a great job with it, but he's sort of an artist of himself, and he's done stuff for different TV productions and studios. He's based out of Tennessee.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, shout out to him because
Yeah,
that sounds really
that's Dennis
good.
Terry. So yeah, Dennis, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for that work and all that you did to make that happen. So appreciate that.
That's so awesome. So what kind of the reason I wanted to have you on is because from what I've read about you and the little bit that I've kind of known about you, seeing the show and everything, you have pretty much a really amazing story of how you got to kind of where you are today. So why don't you just tell the folks at home that may not know about you just a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
And how
So
you came into this.
Yeah, so I kind of talked about how I got started in magic when I was 14 or 15 years old, and it was basically sometime my senior year of high school that I started doing it for like missions work. So I remember we had I went to Shalom Christian Academy. It's a private Christian school in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. And I remember that I went to Costa Rica on a missions trip there, and we were working with some orphanages and some different community organizations that were really helping the most impoverished people in that country. And I remember basically just really wanting to connect with them, and somebody suggested I use magic tricks to connect with them. And I remember thinking, like, magic in church, how does that even work? And so one of my teachers that was in my high school, she really encouraged me. She said, you know, Brett, it's not so important that you know how God will use your gifts or talents, but it's more important that you just say to God, however you can use this gift or talent, I want you to use it for your glory and to build your kingdom. And she said, when you do that, you'll be amazed not what just God does in your life, but what God does in other people's lives as well. And she was right. So when I was a senior in high school, I kind of decided to start a magic ministry, and I had no idea what I was doing. I really didn't even hear of anybody else doing that. I feel like there were other individuals that have done it before. I was not the first, and I'm definitely not the only one to have done it, but I didn't know of anybody else doing it at the time. So I kind of put together a show as best as I knew how. It was my senior year of high school. I kind of took the money that people give you for graduation, and I took that and I went and I bought some things that I could use in churches to kind of illustrate the gospel. And it just, it started off with just a handful of events that summer after I graduated. I went to Tennessee. I went to college at Bryan College in Dayton, Tennessee, and majored in communications. But it was when I was there that I started getting even more involved with going to magic conferences that taught magic and how to use it in a ministry format, connected with different other magicians that really helped me to take what I knew how to do, but actually like guide me and say okay, here's what I've learned in decades of doing this. And so I had the opportunity to go to Ecuador, India. I went to Uganda, places, really I never thought possible. And it was really through all those connections. By the time that I graduated college, I was doing 150 shows a year. So I was doing shows anywhere from Maine, Florida, California, every state really in between, and then basically traveling full time for a decade. Man. So I did that, and for 10 years, from basically 2005 to 2015 was the period where I was traveling, doing mostly ministry nonprofit events, partnering with churches, nonprofit organizations to present the gospel and bring the message and the love of Jesus Christ to people that maybe wouldn't otherwise step inside of a church. Yeah. So it was right around 2015 that God kind of laid upon my heart again. Like I remember, feeling like this was something that God wanted us to reach people that were far from Him. So people that wouldn't necessarily step inside of a church. And it was right around 2014, 2015 that I really felt like God was again sort of laying something new on my heart, where, I felt like if I wanted to be sort of a Christian performer, Christian entertainer, I could do that. And again, there's nothing wrong with anything for the folks that do that kind of thing, where they make a living performing as a Christian musician, Christian magician, or any type of performer that mainly would perform for a Christian audience. But I really felt like God wanted me to reach people that wouldn't step inside of a church, really wouldn't, like, for whatever reason, their story was that they just had been burned by the church and they just really wanted to have nothing to do with God. So that was when we really felt like, well, what would happen if we took what we've learned and our passion for creating these wonderful experiences and then actually created an attraction that is not a Christian attraction, but it still has the same heart, the same mindset, the same ministry behind what we were doing for that decade, but we basically package it as something where people that maybe are far from him, far from God, would actually see something that was like, wow, this is family friendly. This is something where, people I think that come to our show recognize that there's something different about this than maybe other performers that you might see. And we feel like, we want to be that reflection of Christ. In much the same way that, I feel like Chick-fil-A is a great example of this, where you walk into the Chick-fil-A restaurant, you just know there's something different about Chick-fil-A than there is Wendy's or McDonald's or any of those other places. And I feel like that's because they view what they do as ministry. And there's sort of a witness there that even though you don't walk in and they don't hand you a track, there's not like the gospel just being preached to you like as soon as you walk in, but there's still that heart behind what they do. And that's what I feel like we've kind of benchmarked, that similar idea of saying we want to be a reflection of the love of Christ to those that come into our doors.
That's so awesome, and in the most unique way possible too. And I like what you said there. Like, God can use any gift that anybody has to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think the last thing would be magic, but I mean, you think of like the wonders of God and the things that He's done, and that's kind of like the wonders of magic too. Of it just kind of like brings up this new like kind of how did that happen?
Yeah, I feel like wonder is such a powerful emotion because I feel like God created it. He put wonder all around us. You think about the practical reason for wonder. It's kind of like beauty. There is no reason for it, but yet it exists. And I feel like wonder is such a powerful emotion because it reminds us that we're not the center of the universe. It makes us feel small when so much of our culture puts us as the center of the universe. When we experience wonder in its true form, we suddenly realize, wow, there is still more out there. There is something bigger than myself. That I'm not the most important thing in the world. And I feel like that is a reflection of God. It points back to that sort of that thumbprint of God's hand, basically God's work around us.
Absolutely. So you did all this traveling in college. You started that off. What was that like, balancing that like college life and also traveling like everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, I know that folks that travel full time and do any type of ministry, it is challenging because you're constantly here, there. I felt like my home was at the airport, like, because I was constantly going to airports and just flying all over the country doing it. It is exciting at the same time because you get to go places and be places, meet people that you wouldn't otherwise meet. You get to have those stories that are just kind of unique to sort of that traveling thing. I will say that I do love being able to pour more depth into one community, like being here in Lancaster and kind of pouring deeper roots, connecting with people, being able to have a team around us where we're actually able to, in some ways, minister to our team. So like that we're actually able to, again, I feel like you have more opportunities to have deeper relationships when you're in one stationary place as opposed to like constantly traveling here and there and everywhere. So
it's like you make a friend in Arizona, you're like, all right, I'll see you maybe in a year or two.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have the same conversations like 200 times out throughout the year where again, not bad. Like I love touring. I thought it was great. I think it was a great period and season of my life, but I definitely am grateful for what we're doing right now, which again is a whole different story as far as like how God got us from starting a startup small attraction that a lot of people said it wouldn't work, it wasn't a good idea because nobody had done it before, to now suddenly we are in an actual theater. We have a magic theater that we're able to create even more immersive environments.
That's so awesome. What was what made you come back to Lancaster and plant here after being around the entire country and all those other countries too? I mean, you could have picked anywhere.
Sure. There was a period where I was really debating on where to go, and I know we had looked at Nashville, we had looked at places in Tennessee because we had a lot of connections already there, but I think the thing that drew us to Lancaster was, one, I grew up about an hour and a half from here. So I'm not originally from Lancaster, but I grew up in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from here. And the thing that sort of brought me back to this area was I knew that it was an area that had a lot of entertainment. It had a lot of already like vibrant arts community. And also the other thing is I knew that at the time when I moved here that it was not something that was common that you would see in this area. So
Yeah.
unlike, I feel like guys that were doing magic as a ministry full time, you could count them probably on two hands.
Yeah.
And most of them lived around Nashville or sort of like the Christian music scene. So I felt like coming to this area, one, there are different artists and stuff like that we could, become better as just sort of the proximity principle, the idea of being around other people that are like-minded, that are pursuing excellence in creative ministry. That possibility was very good. And then also just like the fact that it was novel, not necessarily, other performers that were doing the same type of ministry in the same area.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when you decided to come back here, you had set up in Birmingham, Pennsylvania, with the Birmingham Corporation.
Yep.
Kind of did that. How did that all come about, and why did you choose them over some other locations out of Lancaster?
So we sat down and we were having conversations, and this was like 2015, 2016, with lots of different organizations, folks that had properties or were interested in developing a property into like a theater performance space. And we had a conversation with John Smucker, and just had a great time just connecting with him and finding out kind of what like their vision was for Lancaster County. And we really felt like it was a great partnership because, one, they were already doing shows and they were looking for something that kind of would cater perhaps towards a wide demographic.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of, it was almost like, that was the door that God said go through. Like that was like, there were so many things where we were having conversations at the time with different people, and a lot of people just said, all the options that we were presented at the time, which we had, dozens and dozens of conversations with different people, even from just like starting something up, four-walling it ourselves and just trying to build it from the ground up. They really encouraged us to say, like, I think this is the best opportunity. And Birmingham, the Smucker family, they're awesome. They're wonderful people. We are very grateful to them and what, just the opportunity they gave us to start something new and different.
Yeah.
Again, not thinking we were completely crazy for saying, hey, Lancaster County, we should build a magic show here.
Lancaster, magic,
exactly,
they go together.
Exactly, yeah. So we had done our homework. We did a lot of investigating of studying the demographics of who visits Lancaster County, what their interests are, where are they coming from, how long are they staying, how much money are they spending while they're here, all those things. So I partnered with SCORE, which is a small business mentoring program. So basically what they do is they are a national organization that pairs startup small business owners with folks that have executive experience. So like a past president of a company or something like that.
Okay.
And they help you kind of with not just the, hey, I have an idea.
Yeah.
But really, how do you make that idea become a reality? How do you budget? How do you do spreadsheets? How do you do all those things that kind of come with the management side of it that necessarily entrepreneurs aren't the best at when they first start something?
Yeah, absolutely. So how long were you in Bird in Hand, and what did you learn while being there? And more to that question also, I guess, would be like, what prepared the way for it to start becoming what this is today?
Yeah, so basically we were there from 2016 through 2019. So we did 4 seasons with them. And, I think by our third going into our 4th year, we were starting to hit issues where we did not have enough seats. So we learned a lot as far as how to market the show, how to really create an experience that was catered. We learned how to change the show. This was something that I feel like was completely different from other destinations when we studied magic shows in different tourist destinations. Most of them have the same show year after year. But that was something where we kind of learned very quickly that there was very important every year that we kind of produce and develop a new experience with a new show. Well, how do you do that when you're trying to not completely go out and buy all new illusions every year? And one of the things that we came up with was we were able to retheme and reskin a lot of different routines and recreate them by putting different theme segments in the show. So now, like when you came to the show, you experienced like the circus, you experienced pirates, you experienced Alice in Wonderland, you experienced a little bit of the 80s. And that's very different than what if you had come to a different year, a different season, you would have been taken maybe to sort of like a candy Willy Wonka inspired land, or we've done before steampunk, or we've done different inventors and inventions of I'm trying to remember. We've done some stuff on Houdini before. We've done stuff when it comes to Hollywood and Broadway. So we're able to take audiences to so many different places. And so as we produce shows every year, like we're able to come back to it. So I feel like that's something I learned at Bird in Hand was just one, how to create an experience that had wide appeal, how to do a show that when you had no kids in the audience. There are certain times of the year where we have no kids whatsoever in the audience, and it's all adults or like close to 65 and older. And how do we make sure that we are family friendly, but at the same time we are something that appeals to all ages?
Yeah. So when you were going through that, like figuring what kind of different acts to put in, were you, like, do you go back like me? So like for me, like I listen to a bunch of podcasters.
Yes.
It's kind of like how I got into this, and I kind of take a little bit of every flavor to throw into that.
Yeah.
How does that work in the magic world with the illusions you're doing, the tricks you're doing? Because you have a pretty small team, I would say, working with you right
We
now?
have a cast of about 5 people, but usually when it comes to the creative and development process, we kind of outsource that to a different set of teams. That kind of, so the people that write the show and develop the show are different than the people that necessarily perform it, although I'm involved in both processes, and Labrina, my wife, is as well. But, you know, what we do is we sit down, we start with saying, okay, here's our idea of potential possible themes for a show. And then what is sort of the thing that's the broad theme that kind of encapsulates all those. So I'll give you kind of an example of this. We haven't produced this show yet, but it's coming next year. It's called Mystery. And so basically...
sneak peek, everyone.
I know, yeah. So we're going to be doing basically theme segments where we take audiences to the mysterious places like Atlantis or Lost Civilizations.
Okay.
We're going to a French masquerade ball as well as the life and adventure of a secret spy agent. So it's like all kinds of different worlds that we start with, and then we kind of from there, once we have our theme segments and we say, okay, what are we going to be doing? Oh, I missed Neverland. We're doing Neverland 2 next year.
Ooh.
Once we get that, once we kind of like figure out like here's what the theme segments are going to be, then we start looking and we say, okay, what potential feelings, colors, tones do we want to go into that theme segment? So kind of, you know, maybe a good way of explaining this is I'm a huge Disney fan. I don't know how you feel about it, but I love Disney. I think they are awesome when it comes to family entertainment. But I look at like the Magic Kingdom. The Magic Kingdom has Frontierland, it has Adventureland, it has Tomorrowland, it has Fantasyland.
Yeah.
All those places have different tones, feelings, colors even, and so they're all encapsulated by the Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
So when we look at a magic show, we try to look at that same thing. So we don't want everything to feel the same. So Neverland is going to feel very different than Atlantis, and it's going to feel very different from like, you know, a secret spy agent, or it's going to, you know, feel different from like the French Masquerade New Orleans type of flavor that we might go with. So all those I kind of look at and I say, what colors are we going to pull out of those? What themes, what music, what styles can we put into the show?
Yeah.
And then from there, I say, okay, what illusions fit those colors, tones, styles, music, tones, and costuming. So that's kind of where we finally land on after we've decided what the show theme is going to be, what the theme segments are going to be. Then, and we've decided upon the colors, the tones, the music style. Then we kind of come in and we say, what are the illusions that fit this style and mold?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we create the show.
That's so awesome. The one thing I loved about your show, because I'm a big music person when it comes to like music with video or music with theater or music with anything, and all the music that you guys used was just on point with everything you're doing. Because
Thank you. Yeah.
It's the suspense of it too when you're like, well, what the heck is he gonna do now? And then you have that like boom, like come out of it. It's just just brings people alive.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Is along with, you know, constructing it, you can't just follow themes, but you also have to put an overall flow together. So you need to have the proper story arc. You need to have the highs, the lows, the funny moments, the hilarious moments. Which, you know, we do that through which you would have seen a comedy character, which is sort of inspired by like a Lucille Ball type of character, where she's just convinced that her giftings are just worthy of the stage. And so like I'm not convinced, and so she's often putting herself into funny situations where she's writing herself into the show.
When she FaceTimed in.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that was so hilarious.
So yeah, and the reason that video, like sometimes there's practical things where the reason why we have to do like that video that you saw is, one, we need a transition, but two, Labrina, who is very good friends or also plays Shirley in the show, is doing a costume change at that point. And we're like, well, we need Shirley to appear, so how do we make Shirley appear if Labrina's not available to do it? So what we did was we said, well, what if we did like a FaceTime video, because you can clone yourself, so to speak, through video, which again, again, like the audience sees and it's just part of the experience.
Yeah.
But there's actually like there's a show going on behind the show to make
To make it
everything
happen.
work. Exactly.
That's so cool. What actually, that's a good thing to bring up with people that are in theater, whether you're in plays or magic or anything. How difficult is that to do a costume change in the middle of a show and get right back out?
I feel like one of the questions the ladies get the most is they're like, how many costume changes do you do during a show? And
Yeah.
I've heard them say, I think like somewhere between like 12 to 15 costume changes during a show, which is very fast given the amount of like theme segments that we do.
Yeah.
There was one year where we did Hollywood and they went from like Singing in the Rain to like Wizard of Oz into like classic Hollywood with like the canes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They had like 3 costume changes like back to back to back to back, and it was like so fast. Like it was just like they had no time at all to
Yeah.
like spare. Along with that, you know, we've had, you know, our young kiddos in the show, and also we didn't have it this year, but in previous years we've used like a duck in the show or a chinchilla in the show, and you know, using kids or animals in the show creates a whole different dynamic because again, you know, we've had a chinchilla get loose on the stage, we've had you know a duck that you know like again almost like flies loose or something like that. So
Yeah.
you just there's so much unpredictability that happens, and sometimes you just have to roll with it and continue on.
And then people see the duck fly, and you're like, no, that's not part of the show.
Yeah,
Run,
exactly.
run.
right. So, yeah, I've had back in the days when I was doing touring shows, I worked with doves, and I had a dove that like flew out over the audience, and then like we had to go out and catch it like while it was like almost like plaguing the person that was on the second pew that was in there in the church. No, we have like you know, people ask me like, oh, did stuff ever go wrong? I'm like, all the time. Yes, things
Yeah.
all the time. It's live theater. Like things are going to happen. But
Yeah.
you know, the thing is like, as long as the audience sees you're having fun and you're enjoying what you're doing, like they really don't care
Yeah.
if something messes up. Like they just, you know, we're human. You
Yeah.
know, things are going to go wrong, and that happens. But you know, the important thing is that you don't take yourself too seriously and you keep the focus on having something that's enjoyable for your audience.
Yeah, the one thing I love about your show too, only being to it once, was you know we come in to enter, and the girls that are on stage with you and the guys that are on stage with you are there to greet you. They welcome you. It's a very personable show, and
Yeah.
that's something that really stuck out to me because
Yeah.
you don't see that a lot. There's
Yeah.
and I think that's part of being like this small town kind of
Right.
culture area as
Yeah,
well.
it's kind of funny when people realize, you know, the people that are taking their photos or they're like helping them get seated or maybe even they're helping them to check in, like are actually the people that they're going to see being sawed in half later on the show.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's one of those things where they realize, I think probably by intermission, like, oh, what that girl sat me, like, you know,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things where we have intentionally done some of that because we want you to feel a connection to the people in the show
In the
before
show,
the show before the show even starts.
Yeah.
So
That's so awesome. Great group of people here. Now, what was it like for you because again, beautiful theater, love what you did with this place.
Yeah.
How you taking it over. What was that like planning this, because you planted here basically during the pandemic.
Yeah,
And you
so-
had to run through that
Yeah.
all those 17 months just trying to get by with.
Yeah. Well, maybe Mike, if I can back up just a
No,
little
go
bit
ahead.
before
Yeah.
that. For basically, you know, by 2019 we kind of knew that our time at Bird in Hand was coming to a close. We kind of had, you know, been praying and saying, God, you know, if this is something that we're to continue partnering with Bird in Hand,
Yeah.
then this set of circumstances is going to happen. When we clearly knew that was not going to happen, and that basically our time was coming to a close. Then we were like, God, what are we going to do? Like, I really was lost as far as I knew that we were going to go somewhere else. I was telling our team, like, start preparing. Like, we are going to be going somewhere different next year, but not really having a clue as to where we're going to go.
Yeah.
And it was sort of just like, again, when I look back over the circumstances that happened, like, I can clearly say this only happened because God wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
Because there were too many things that looked like coincidences that just the chances of them all aligning perfectly for us to be able to basically, at the same time as we're looking for a new theater space, this suddenly becomes available because the previous company, Rainbow Comedy Playhouse, just suddenly went out of business, ran out of money, closed their doors overnight. They were just gone. And, you know, just wanting to be sensitive and not just like step in on something that was almost kind of like a tragedy, you know, the end of an organization, but at the same time, like, God clearly saying, like, this is what I have planned. This is what I have for you. Now go. Like, how I remember having a conversation with somebody like, Brett, I don't know how much more clear God has to make this to you. Like, he's going to like just kick you through the door. Like, you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was amazing to see all those things kind of fall in line. So that happened in the fall of 2019. So we basically found out, we signed the lease for this space to do a multi-year lease for this moving forward, and we're preparing to get everything ready. We knew, basically we took over the facility January 1st of 2020, and we had 3 months, less than 3 months, we had about 10 weeks to renovate the space and get everything done, because we had groups that were coming to preview. We had different conferences that were going to be doing like a sneak preview for their groups and buses that were coming to the area. So we were trying to get ready for all that timeline. We worked nonstop basically from January, February into middle of March, which we finished in time, but it was right around that same time
when
that like
started shutting down.
Yeah, so we had scheduled and planned to open officially in April, middle of April, when we would have opened to the general public. But the week when we were getting ready to do previews was the week that basically the governor came on and basically said like, hey, we're closing everything down. You know, we basically began shutting down the schools and all that stuff, and we were just kind of like, you know, at first we were just shocked, like couldn't believe this was happening. Like just, you know, the timing on it just seemed so strange. And you know, it was difficult because there was a period where we just didn't even know, like, would we ever open? Like, how would we survive this whole thing? Because we had basically taken so much of our reserves from the previous year, and we invested into creating the space. We like spent time painting in here, and like creating all the different elements, hanging the poster artworks and all that stuff around the theater. But like we got to that place where we were ready to open, and it just didn't happen. Jeez. And so, yeah, it was hard. It was, I mean, I would say I can think of probably no more difficult time where there was this day after day hopelessness of just not even sure, like, if, when, how, like, where are we going to make it through this? And you know, people talked about the pandemic and how the pandemic like kind of upset their routine, or like they lost their job. Like for us personally, I mean, you know, thankfully we're blessed that we did not experience loss of life, and I know like that, you know, nothing can replace that. But for us, we felt like we were experiencing just sort of the death of the dream that God had given us, and we weren't sure if it would ever recover. You know, during that period, I remember a lot of folks encouraging us and saying, you know, that they were praying for us, and just, you know that it was an unfortunate timing where, you know, seemingly this dream that we've had of creating this unique experience was coming true, and yet it kind of just like came to a standstill when the pandemic happened. So all that to say that January 1st did come, and that's when we did officially open. Last year was very difficult. You know, we did not see out-of-state travel. We saw a lot of folks traveling just from, you know, the surrounding area. We were shut down again towards the end of December, but we have now opened March of this past year, and we're experiencing our best year ever.
That's awesome.
Our attendance isn't, we have a lot of room to grow, I'll say that. We still like, it's going very well, but it's something where it's amazing just to see kind of continually how God continues to take care of us. And even in those moments when we thought we weren't going to have enough, you know, he just continually put that little just more that we needed to keep going from day to day.
I think that's so awesome to see how his hand is still on this. I mean, like, especially during that time, you literally finish basically to the week of when everything gets shut down. And you talk about having faith and trust. Stuff. Well, what do you mean? I thought that this was it, you know? But as far as the attendance stuff goes too, like even when I came to the one show, I mean, this is when people were just starting to come back out to everything. I noticed one thing with that is that when I came in here, it looked like a lot of the people that were either out of state or like outside of the county were, I don't want to say nervous, but like a little off from like gathering. But as soon as the show started, like it was a distraction just to get all that away, which I think really needed to happen with places opening back up, more entertainment coming back out, you saw. So it was cool to be able to witness you guys, one, coming into like this new rebirth of a dream that was already on your heart, and then being able to like just spread that around to the people.
Yeah, I feel like there were folks that kind of questioned why were we operating during the pandemic, and I think the answer that we gave to a lot of folks was we felt like, you know, even in the very difficult times that everybody was going through, there still was a necessity to say like, hey, we still need to experience, you know, that sense of wonder. We still need to have that sense of escape where you know, we explored different things too of like, could we do it virtually? Could we, you know, change the model and everything? And we kind of came back to it where we said, you know what, this is an experiential thing. And for those, excuse me, that are ready to come out and experience that sense of wonder again. You know, we socially distance, we kind of put different space between the things. We encouraged, you know, different sanitation measures and, you know, all that. So it was a challenging time. I definitely feel like there were days where I definitely did not handle the stress and even like the heartbreak well. Like there were just times where I was, frustrated, angry, confused, afraid, just trying to lead a team and give them hope. What do you say to your team when you have no idea when you're going to be able to open? You're like, sorry guys, hey, we've worked so hard for this, but this is not just going to happen. And when is it going to happen? I don't know. Like none of us knew.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is none of us had clarity on what the future held. So is something where I feel like during it we kind of just said, you know what, we don't know, but here are some things that we can control. We can control our attitude. We can control our mindset. We can control our outlook. We can control what we do with this time that we've been given. How do we invest in ourselves and our team to continue getting ready for when we are able to open again? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's good advice. Good advice. What are some upcoming shows that you guys are preparing for? I know you talked a little bit about next year coming up, but what about for the following to the end of 21?
So right now we're finishing up our run of Worlds of Wonder, which will wrap up here at the end of October. So we've got about 2 weeks left of that show, and then we start our Christmas show starting November 3rd, which will run pretty much every week. It is every week, November through the end of December.
Okay.
And then we will close. We'll do holiday weekends starting in January and February, where we will basically do like Martin Luther King weekend, President's Day weekend, we'll bring back Worlds of Wonder. And then finally we'll debut our new show, which is Magic and Wonder Mystery, that will air, or it will start performing here middle of March, right around St. Patrick's Day.
That's awesome.
And then I don't think you know about this. This might be news to everybody, but next year we haven't announced this to the public yet, but we've started advertising it to our groups markets. But we are launching a second show here in this facility, which will be produced by Labrina and I, as well as our creative team. That is going to be called Jukebox Jive, but it's a music variety show. It's the 50s, 60s, 70s, a little bit of the 80s that kind of combines sort of the jukebox theme along with sort of like the soda pop shop, drive-in movie, prom, car wash, maybe Elvis. We're not sure. We're still kind of kicking around some things with that. But it's going to be a music variety show that has different elements like figure skating in it and a quick change act and sort of the dynamic circus arts that are always a part of the show.
That's awesome. What led you to decide to do that?
So we've been kicking around for several years the idea of producing a second show here, in part because we have so many Magic and Wonder shows that take place throughout the year, but we feel like, this facility, we have, opportunities to put something else in here that people can come and experience. So I think it's something where we're broadening our appeal and just kind of, for those that say, well, I don't like a magic show, I'm just it's not for me. Again, we similar saying like, okay, we can develop a music show that does have appeal for those that love those decades of music, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they love sort of that retro vibe and that feel of people skating around on roller skates and delivering, food or shakes or whatever. Like that's kind of like what we would love to create. So I think it's exciting for us, and all of our shows, even like the Magic and Wonder show, we've always kind of said we want to create this for people that's just not into magic, but it's for all people. So that's one of the reasons why when you came and you experienced the show, yes, you saw big illusions like what you would see on America's Got Talent, but there was also the hilarious comedy as well as the dynamic circus art. So if you've ever gone to a circus show, seen them climb the giant piece of fabric, the aerial acrobatics are part of the show as well.
You had some guy rolling around in a giant ring, and
so that's called a sear wheel. But yes, it's like a giant ring that a person hops inside of the middle of, and they're able to like do like things that you would spin like a coin, and just like spinning very fast. And Boston's sort of our dynamic circus performer, so he does that and some other cool stuff that again kind of reminds you of sort of more like the Cirque du Soleil style of the show.
No, it really does. He was really good. I was scared for his life at one point.
I think like people ask him, they're like, "Do you ever smash your fingers?" And he's like, "Usually you do it about once or twice, and you kind of don't do it again after that." It's kind of like pain is a really good teacher in that regard. But he's a wonderful performer. He's been with us now since the very beginning. So he started with us in 2016. I knew him when he was about 16 years old, and I met him at our church life group. So I was involved in student ministry, and he was one of the students that was in that ministry group, and kind of saw something in him that I thought was unique and said, "Hey, you know what? What do you think about being a part of a magic show?" And so he started off just pushing props around, and now you come to see our shows and you'll see him do different circus arts as part of our shows.
No, that's it's really good. I like that, and the what was the other one that you did? I just had it on top of my head.
Was it the air or the juggling cube or the sear wheel or?
It was a sear wheel, and then there was what was the other one he did? And now I can't remember. I just had it on top of my head. It was something with, maybe it was the juggling. He was juggling the what do you call those things? I don't even know. Now I forget.
I'm trying to remember. I know that he does in our show right now, or the show you would have seen. He does like a juggling cube where he spins this giant LED cube around him.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
That
okay,
was
yeah.
it. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, there's a big, huge rectangular cube that lights up, and that's part of the circus segment. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, that's so cool. So let's go into the Merlin Award. And for people that at home that are listening that might not know what that is, it's an award around the magic community. The likes of your idol David Copperfield have won it. Chris Angel, Siegfried and Roy, Penn and Teller, I believe, also won it as well. It's kind of like the Oscars for you guys.
Yeah. So many people consider the Merlin Award to be like the Oscar, what the Oscar is to magic, and it's awarded by the largest magic organization, the International Magician Society. And because of the pandemic and everything going on, this past year they had basically all virtual. So you had mentioned before, like previous recipients would have included David Copperfield, Penn and Teller, Siegfried and Roy, Lance Burton. So a lot of the guys that I looked up to as a kid. And one of my friends kept saying, like, I think you should submit for this. I think you guys should put in for this. And I was like, I don't really think that we've designed the show for folks that aren't magicians. Like, it's something where we aren't necessarily, again, I think magicians can come and enjoy the show, but it's just, we've geared this for the general public. And they were like, no, I think you really should consider submitting for this. And so we submitted virtually, and basically after the board had reviewed our submission, we were surprised and notified to say, like, hey, you guys have won the 2021 Best Magic and Variety Show for the Merlin Award, and we were honored. So again, because of things that were going on back, we were notified that in end of January, beginning of February of 2021, and they said that we were going to do a virtual presentation of the award to you, and so basically that's what they did, so we are honored. I think it's something where, for me, it's a recognition of all that our team has done. I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't look at the award and be like, oh, look what I've accomplished. It's more of like, wow, look what we have worked together to create, and then also God has blessed, and it's something where we're extremely humble and honored to have been recipients of that award for this year.
What's the emotion going through your head when you got that phone call of this? I mean, because you obviously have seen your idols grow up and win this thing, and like you said, it's your team. It's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, again, I think that I was kind of surprised and shocked at first, and just kind of like, oh my goodness, like what just happened? Like, after we had gone through everything that we went through last year with the pandemic, and then to kind of be recognized with that award for 2021, I think it was kind of, I felt a sense of like, I'm really happy for our team to have this. After everything that we've gone through, I'm really happy to have this kind of like recognition and win, just to kind of like celebrate with our team. But also I think, again, going back to saying, like, humbled by the sense that, like, God's still with us. And there's just ways in which you sometimes go through a very dark period of life, and it isn't to say that you necessarily lose faith, or that you're just really questioning God. But I think we had a lot of questions, and I don't think we still have answers. And I don't think we're ever going to get answers. And I don't think we have to. But I think that in the midst of it, God is still there. And He's been with us, and we're humbled that God has been able just to continue to open up doors and opportunities for people to come into this area, and for them to experience what we've created, and what we hope is sort of a reflection of the love of Christ to those that come in through the doors.
That's awesome. What is your favorite illusion or trick that you've done in your whole career now? What's the one that, like, is really important to you?
I think this is a hard question because I have so many different thoughts.
Check something really quick.
Okay. Yeah. There are so many different directions I could take this. I think that my favorite routine that we've done in the show was a routine that my wife, Labrina, does, which she's awesome, by the way. I haven't talked enough about her, but she's just like, people look at what I do on stage, and they see her, like, by my side, but what they don't realize is that, like, she is not just my assistant. She's also my business partner. She's also the person that, like, I trust more than anything. And also, she is just amazing, and she's a mom to our kids, and just she is everything. So I would not be able to do what we do without what she does.
She's a great performer too.
Yeah,
The stuff
yeah.
that she was doing, like
Yeah.
on the stage and everything. And
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
The one of the wholesome things was like when you guys brought your kids out and you guys were
Yeah.
all together and doing that. That
Yeah.
was so cool, man.
So yeah, we love to incorporate our kids as part of the show, and
Yeah.
we basically they're able to, if they don't want to, or they're not able to do the trick that day, then we don't force them to, or we have a way to do it without them. But yeah, she's a part of our show. My favorite routine that we do was a couple years ago, where she does a routine where it's like the linking rings, but it's a little different because they actually float and fly in the air. So it's so beautiful because it just is. She does it. Yeah, she does it to, or she did it to during like the Willy Wonka segment and Pure Imagination. I don't know if you remember that song from the old Willy Wonka movie. And basically, it's so breathtaking because she does such an amazing job with it. Like every time I watch it, I'm like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like I know how the trick works, and I still like. It's just one of those things where when somebody does something so beautifully and so
Just
well,
so
like I
amazed.
love it. Like, and it was my favorite moment in the show. So it wasn't in this year's show, but we'll probably bring a version of it back sometime in the near future again. And I also love whenever I get to work with audience members, because you never know who's going to be in the audience. You never know what response you're going to get. And I remember, I've had instances where, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we can't use volunteers, or we didn't use volunteers last year and part of this year. We will probably starting in the Christmas show again. But we had creative ways to get the audience involved. But I remember a few years ago, I had a kid up on stage with me, and I asked him, what do you do for a living? And he goes, I work at Target. And I'm like, what do you do at Target? And this, again, he was like 7 years old.
Yeah.
He's like, I stack boxes. So I'm like, how much do they pay you to stack boxes? He's like, $10. I'm like, wow, that's great. Like, you stack boxes at Target. So you never know like what response you're going to get. Those things just like crack you up. So like, I love being able to have conversations about people, ask them, questions to get to know them a little bit better. But it's kind of my way of making the audience the star of the show, and make them sort of shine in their personality, in their moment.
Yeah, interaction, man. That's the best. I think it's the best part of any show.
Yeah.
Unless you're like really shy and don't want to get up there.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we have folks like that are just like, I don't want to be picked. They're just they have no interest, whatever, and we respect that. You're not going to force anybody. But again, it's one of those things where even this year, one of the things I was really adamant about was like, even though we weren't able to bring people up on stage, I still wanted to get people involved in the show, so they could feel a part of it and they could feel a connection. That you feel like you're not just performing for the audience, but they're with you. They're going on that journey with you. And we've kind of had to be creative in how we do that through at the start of the show. There's like a card trick that you may remember that was on cards on your table, and there was like a reveal with the cards that you had and you were dealing down, or even like I'll ask the audience to give a response to a question when I say think of an animal, or think of a superhero or something like that, and what they say determines sort of the outcome of how the show ends up.
I remember that one too.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, I see what you're doing. So out of all of your career and everything that you have accomplished, where do you see this theater going, and where do you want it to go?
Sure. So I mean, definitely, this is just the beginning of what we have planned. So I think when Labrina and I 10 years ago went on our Firefly Walk, and we were dreaming about what we wanted to create for Lancaster County, we really dreamed of creating an attraction that was full of wonder and full of magic. And so we kind of came up with a long-term big picture idea of what we wanted to create as far as creating sort of a multi-level attraction that's more than just a magic show, but it's very immersive. I'm not going to go into a lot of details about it because I want you to stay tuned as far as like what will be coming in the future. But that was our dream. We wanted to create this attraction, this experience is what we wanted to create. And so the first thing we said is, how do we do this? And then we said, well, we have to show that a magic show can work in Lancaster County. So we've done that. Then we said we had to scale it to a size where, it outgrows sort of where we were at Birmingham. We've done that. Now it's in a new facility. Now we're in the process of producing multiple shows to create enough of the revenue to say, down the road, we would like to create this thing that we've been dreaming about since the very beginning, and that's what eventually we're going to create. So it's coming, and I would say stay tuned for even more magic and wonder products, experiences that are coming to the area. And I think that Lancaster is a great place for us. It's been a great fit for just a landing place for launching our dreams.
Yeah, that's all awesome. So where can people find more information about the theater,
Sure.
yourself, if they want to get in contact with you, tickets, everything like that,
Yeah.
upcoming shows?
So go to lancastermagicshow.com. That's our website. You're going to find information about our upcoming shows, upcoming show times, as well as tickets and all that stuff. So that's the best place to find out. And yeah, we'd love to have folks come and check out, see what we're doing, and stay tuned for even, again, every year the show changes. So like you enjoyed the show when you came during the summer, but if you come again sometime here next year, it'll be completely different, the year after that and all that. So people can come back time after time and experience something new and different with their families.
Yeah, I'm a testament to that. Great show. So hopefully you guys can come out and see it sometime. I have, we'll wrap up here, but I do have one final question for you really quick. Well, actually, I guess I have two final questions for you.
Okay.
Well, the first one would be this. The first one would be, you had a dream at a young age. You, and obviously you had God behind you. You were praying for it. If you had anybody in any type of art or theater or anything that they were trying to get into, what would you tell that person to like prepare themselves for as they're going through that journey?
I think the best thing to do is to find somebody that is doing what you want to do, whatever art form that would be. So if it's a ventriloquist, if it's some type of dynamic painter on stage, if it's a circus artist or whatever, I would say the proximity principle is huge. Find a person that is doing what you want to do. Start off maybe just by seeing if there's resources that they've put out that you can read, that you can dive into, because I know like sometimes it's like, well, if I reached out to David Copperfield and said, David Copperfield, I want to be a magician, he's not going to respond.
Yeah.
I mean, like he's way too busy to do that. So I think, go to places that maybe teach, or go to the person that has written about that topic that is already teaching. Go get their book, go get their resource, dive into it, put highlights into their book or resource, and then come and have a conversation with them. Or like just send them a message and be like, listen, I read your book. I love this. I took this away. This was very helpful to me. I would love to learn more about this. Would you be open to having a sit-down conversation so I can ask you like 5 questions, and like it's going to take 30 minutes of your time, like putting a parameter and time frame on that. And what I've been surprised is that like people really love being able to pour into someone who is a sponge or someone who is willing to learn. But I think you have to be prepared. Like I think you need to really know what that person has written about, so that you're already a student of theirs, and they already feel like you've mastered or taken time to, that you're worth pouring into. Like you're teachable. So.
And that's like a reflection of appreciation too, that you took the time to learn about what I was writing about. The last question for you, sir, is this: if you could say anything to anybody out there tonight that didn't believe in God or Jesus Christ, what would you say to that person?
I think that what I would tell them is that I think I'd want to hear about their story. I want to find out first off, like what was life growing up like for them? What were their experiences with the church? What were their experiences with people that claim to follow Christ? Because I feel like that would inform my conversation of where you would take things. Because again, I think sometimes people want to be heard and understood. And when they feel understood and they feel like you get them, they're much more open to be influenced by you. If I feel like you don't get me and you don't understand me, and you start trying to tell me something about your life and what you're doing, then I'm going to put up a wall and I'm like, you don't know who I am. You don't have any idea. But if I feel like you can empathize, like it's just the power of empathy of like, oh my gosh, yes, that I can't believe, like I couldn't imagine going through that situation that you went through. Or, oh my gosh, like to have somebody that claimed to follow Jesus, then they like actually did that. Like that would totally turn me off too. Like I would want nothing to do with God, because again, I'm going to assume that people, if I walked in their shoes, I would have come to the same conclusions that they have come to. And so they have not come to those conclusions or the point in their life where they are without having the experiences that they've had. So if I can make a person, if I can genuinely empathize with them and genuinely understand where they're coming from, then that opens the door that opens the possibility to them being influenced
Yeah.
and hearing what I have to say.
Getting on their level and being personable with them. That's what it's all about. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. I
absolutely,
thank you for
Mike.
inviting me here. It was a
Yeah.
really fun time getting to know you, getting to help you to kind of get the Magic and Wonder Theater out there
Sure.
even more.
Well, thank you.
So I'll have all the links in the description down below that Brett had mentioned earlier on how you can come see the show and where the location of it is also. If you have any questions for them as well, you can always Facebook message them for more details.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways that people to connect with us would be through social media. So if you message Magic and Wonder, I get all those messages. So I'm going to most likely check them, or one of our team will pass them along to me. Again, you can connect with us through Instagram, which, again, it's Magic and Wonder Show is the panhandle on that. Or, again, if there's anything we can do, just like reach out to us through our box office or come and see the show and talk to us afterwards.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. As always, guys, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube at Wallace Production, WALLESS Production. You can check out the new channel, Talk to Me Clips, small little clippets of interviews like I just did here with Mr. Brett today. If you don't feel like listening to hour-long podcasts, because I know I don't sometimes. And if you want to support the Magic and Wonder Theater, go to any of the links that Mr. Brett mentioned here today. Come out and see the show. It's in a great location, great spot. This guy right here is he's being very humble right now, but he's amazing at what he does, and the different illusions that he does are going to blow you away and leave you in wonder.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you so much, Brett. Have a good one, guys.